Coming in last place by far is the Book of Boba Fett, okay? I don't care that The Last Jedi ruined your childhood. This show was so unbelievably boring, and the only good episodes weren't even episodes of the show. I'm not counting episodes 5 and 6 as Boba Fett episodes, okay? Those were clearly Mandalorian episodes, and the first 4, those were the Book of Boba Fett episodes, and they sucked. They were so boring, and I would go as far as to say that they were unwatchable. Coming in at number 13 is gonna be The Phantom Menace. Now, I know this is one of my most unpopular placements, but I think this movie is severely lacking in emotion and drives for the characters. I have rewatched this movie recently, and I do have respect for the plot. I feel like if the plot was conveyed to the audience in a better way, this could have been a much better movie that had more emotion and intensity to it, but George Lucas decided to tell the movie in a very unengaging way with wooden dialogue that did not make me feel anything for the characters at all. So, while it had potential, I still think it's probably the worst Star Wars movie. Number 12, The Rise of Skywalker. Since my last video, I have changed my opinion. The Rise of Skywalker is worse than The Last Jedi, okay? The Rise of Skywalker has horrible pacing at the beginning. It moves so fast at a breakneck speed that makes you feel like, what is even happening, right? And it's so fast, and I hate that Palpatine came back. It completely disrespected the Star Wars franchise. When you talk about The Last Jedi ruining your childhood, I think this movie is a bigger offender of that. And I also hate that this movie literally just spends its entire runtime trying to retcon and undo everything done in The Last Jedi, okay? Even if you really hated that movie, you cannot tell me that the sequel to a bad movie should just completely undo all the plot lines. There were some good ideas introduced in The Last Jedi, and there were some interesting things that they could have followed up on, but they decided to just completely throw all that out the window and try to set up the finale only in this movie and just completely abandon everything that happened in The Last Jedi as much as they could. And then the actual narrative is just full of coincidences and things that make no sense just so we can get to this finale. That was kind of cool, but the finale should have been way longer, and they could have done some much better things than just having Rey and Palpatine talk and then she deflects his own lightning back at him. The finale was underwhelming, but so was the whole movie. Coming in at number 11 is gonna be Attack of the Clones. The main problem with this movie is that there is no central storyline that's driving everything forward. You just have all these different things happening, and it doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere. Like, you have the assassination plot line that's not very interesting, right? Because we know, oh, none of them are gonna die because they're in the original trilogy, and Padme's definitely not gonna die because we're obviously building up to her being the mother of Luke and Leia. And then I kind of like the mystery with the clones. If that would have been done better, the mystery of who created the clones and kind of exploring that could have been honestly the main plot line of the movie, and they should have had Anakin and Obi Wan maybe going on that adventure and really leaned into that, but they decided to just sort of dabble in it and not put any intrigue into it at all. And then we don't even get to see Count Dooku, the main villain of the movie, until like an hour in, and he doesn't really tie in to any of these plot lines that have been happening. So we just get to this contrived final battle that feels like we haven't been building up to it. It just, oh, it happens. They're in the factory and then the final battle happens. This movie is just deeply flawed on a structural level, and my only positive really is that it introduces a ton of Star Wars lore. Like, it gives us a bunch of new characters and locations and things that expand the Star Wars universe more, but it's not really good. Coming in at number 10 is gonna be the new Obi Wan Kenobi show. I just made a video about this, so you can go see my thoughts over there, but quickly I just want to say the show feels very cheap. It looks like they didn't put that much money into it, and that leads to a whole bunch of other problems. And also just the central narrative is not very interesting, and I think they focus a little too much on Reva. She should have had her own show. While she did have a good character, she didn't feel like she fit here, and I think the central narrative in the show was really lacking in intensity and that sense of urgency that you really want in Star Wars. In my opinion, this show should have been a slam dunk, but they managed to mess it up, and I didn't really enjoy it that much. Number 9, The Last Jedi. I recently rewatched this movie, and I did like most of it. I honestly thought it was pretty fun. I like the Finn and Rose adventure, even though it feels weird and it was kind of shoehorned in there. I did sort of like the themes that were introduced in this movie, but the two things that really bring this movie down for me are, of course, the character of Luke Skywalker, which I can't get on board with Luke's character. I do not believe that he wouldn't have gone out and helped his sister and he would have just stayed on the island and done nothing, okay? There were so many better directions that they could have gone with that. Everybody's already complained about that. But then also, I didn't really like the deconstruction of the the Star Wars lore and like the deconstruction of who's good and who's bad, you know, with the plot line about how the same people who sell the First Order their weapons also sell the Jedi their weapons. So really there's no good guys. Like, no, you don't get to come into Star Wars and completely disrespect it like that, okay? So while I did think the adventure was fun and I honestly enjoyed the movie, those two things really drag it down for me. Coming in at number 8 is gonna be Solo. I honestly think this movie gets way too much hate for what it's trying to be. Okay, this movie is not trying to be the next installment in the Skywalker saga and is trying to advance it in a big sort of way that has galactic stakes. No, it's sort of just a fun little side story, okay? And that's when it's best, when this movie is just trying to show Han Solo's little adventure that he's going on and how he met Chewbacca and just trying to be a light prequel movie, okay? There were some weird things in the movie, okay? I didn't really like that Darth Maul came back. I didn't love the villain, okay? But still, I thought it was fun enough, and I don't think you need to criticize it on a deep level because it's not really trying to be a deep movie. It's just trying to be fun. Coming in at number 7 is gonna be The Mandalorian. This show is exactly what all the Star Wars Disney Plus shows need to be. They don't need to tie in to the larger Skywalker saga, and they don't have to be part of the established narrative that we've been following forever. Okay, we can branch off into different places in the galaxy and tell new stories. And that's why I like this show at the beginning, because it was just its own thing and we're getting to see these new characters and we really get to expand the Star Wars universe in a way that actually will make you appreciate the other movies more because they take place in such a rich world. And of course, I love the character arc that Mando slowly goes on through this show. I love how at first he lives by a strict code and he doesn't ever take off his helmet and he has these very strict values that he always adheres by, but then this little baby comes into his life and it completely changes his life. And at the end of the day, it's kind of a story about fatherhood. So I really enjoy that the show is just trying to be a subtle character exploration that takes place in the Star Wars universe. Coming in at number 6 is gonna be The Force Awakens. Even though the next two movies don't follow up on these plot lines very well, and especially since some of them are abandoned completely, I do think this movie on its own is good. I know when you kind of look back on this movie, you're like, oh, well, none of the things that they set up are really paid off in a satisfying way. And yeah, that's true, but I'm judging this movie on its own merits. Just watching this movie by itself, it's pretty good. It's entertaining. J.J. Abrams takes you on this roller coaster ride where it doesn't stop. You're just always invested in what's happening and in the action. I really enjoy that aspect of this movie. And I really like Finn in this movie, even though his character is completely botched in The Last Jedi and J.J. Abrams does not understand him, it seems like. I really like the way that they explore the character of a stormtrooper who turns good. That's obviously super interesting, and it's really well done here. And Rey, she's a funny, interesting character, and Poe, he's a cool character. I think he should have been in this movie a little bit more, but I still like him. And I also really enjoy the character of Kylo Ren. I think he's studied really interestingly here. So yes, while this movie is not followed up very well, I still think on its own, it's very good. Number 5, Rogue One. This is by far the best Disney Star Wars movie. I love that they come in and they tell us how they found the plans to the Death Star. Some people were saying, oh, this is just an unnecessary movie that they're doing to pander to the fans because they know they'll come see a story about this. Yeah. I am one of those fans. I came and I enjoyed it. Okay, I don't care if they're pandering to me. I want them to pander to me. That's their job. I want them to entertain me. And I really enjoyed the way they did that. Honestly, I think the first half of the movie was a little weak, but the last half was great. I loved that we finally got to see an actual war in Star Wars. Like, we really got to see like characters down in the trenches shooting lasers at each other. And I love that the characters don't survive at the end. It's very compelling and it makes sense in the canon. This movie has some issues at the beginning. It's a little weird, but when you move into the second act, I think we honestly get some of the best Star Wars ever. Coming in at number 4 is gonna be Revenge of the Sith. A movie that on its own is not amazing, but when it comes to an installment in the Skywalker saga, it's honestly amazing. I really love all of the character moments in this movie. I love the final battle, all the lightsaber battles in this movie actually. The study of the character of Anakin Skywalker, while it does feel a little rushed and it isn't very subtle, I still think it's very well done and it makes you feel for his character. I love the dynamic between him and Obi Wan, and I like a lot of the drama that sort of takes place within the circle of the Jedi Order. I didn't really love the Shakespearean standing around talking dialogue in the previous two, but in this movie it really feels like we're building to something, and it really feels like like we're going towards the original trilogy in like this grand finale. So I'm willing to sit through these scenes that set up the plot to get to the big payoff. And when the payoff comes, it's good. It hits hard. I really love the final battle and the final scenes between Obi-Wan and Anakin in this movie, and then his transformation into Darth Vader was done very well. My biggest critique of this movie, the only thing that like took me out of it, was that Anakin sort of fell to the dark side a little quickly, and it didn't happen very gradually. It felt like in the last movie they made him a little too dark by having him kill the Sand People, so they had to make him lighter again to remind the audience, oh yeah, he's still a good guy. And then as soon as they needed him to turn dark, boom, he falls on his knees and says, I'm serving the Emperor now. It just felt a little rushed to me. So yeah, this movie does suffer from a lot of George Lucas isms, but I think the story is just too awesome and too grand for those things to take away from my enjoyment of it. Number 3, Return of the Jedi. I really love this movie, but when it comes to an actual film, it's sort of mediocre, okay? It really slows down in the middle, and the opening sequence at Jabba the Hutt's palace just feels like it's completely disconnected from the rest of the movie. It's really interesting, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the central narrative, which is Luke being tempted by the dark side. It's just there to tie up the cliffhanger from the end of Empire, and therefore it feels like the second 2 acts are sort of being rushed. They're rushing everything into place so that they can get to the throne room sequence at the end, instead of sort of having it gradually build and have the film flow in a very nice way. So while the first 2 movies were pretty much paced flawlessly, this one definitely has some issues, which is why I bring it down. But once you get to those second 2 acts, while it is kind of moving pretty fast, it is really good. And that final scene where Anakin kills the Emperor, especially after watching the prequels, that is just a great redemption ending to Anakin Skywalker's character. Number 2, A New Hope, the thing that started it all. I love this film, okay? I think it's probably the best paced Star Wars movie. It moves very nicely. It makes you feel like you're on the adventure with the characters, and you never feel like you're dragging, you know? The movie starts off with action and Vader invading the ship, and then you go to Luke on Tatooine, and then him starting his adventure, and then all the stuff with the Empire, and then when the action slows down, you get some nice character study moments, and I love the arc for Han Solo and Luke, and then I love seeing Ben Kenobi die, and especially after watching the prequels and this new Obi Wan show, you really get to see that there's a lot of history between him and Vader, and that's all paid off pretty well here. So it's a great movie, a classic. There's really nothing negative to say about it. But coming in at first place is going to be The Empire Strikes Back. I'm not sure if there's ever gonna be a movie that I enjoy more than this one, or a movie that's gonna be better than this one. Okay, some people will try to point to some crappy artsy film that I don't have any interest in watching. But when it comes to really cool, fun movies that I just want to rewatch every single day, this is the only one that I can think of. You know how I said A New Hope is basically a perfect movie and there's nothing wrong with it? Well, this movie manages to take all the concepts and the characters from that movie and somehow do the impossible and make it better. So this movie just blows me away every time I see it, and how fun it is to watch, but also just how good it is as a film. I love this movie every time I see it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more content on the channel, hit that subscribe button, and I hope to see you back next time I publish a video.